Hi everyone, it's Kendra Dublin and I'm your ministry launch strategist, and we are here for our Stop Running from Online Ministry series, and we are here for our video on your sins, yes, your past sins are delaying your online ministry. So we see here that at this moment of your life, because your sins have been looping around in your head, and because of things that you have done, you have not separated yourself from them, and you have somewhat allowed that to be your identity. You're condemning yourself. You're saying, I'm stupid. You're saying, I don't know what God can do with me. How can he truly use me? Why do you keep doing those things? Or why have you done those things? Because in a lot of regards, a lot of you aren't even doing the things that kept you in your sins. But here you are still looping, replaying those things that God has already said, your sins are as far as the east is from the west. I have removed those from you, but here you are picking up your sins as if that's the righteous thing to do. It's time to lay it down. But here's the thing. Here's what's happening. For those of you that want to be authors, you're like, man, I know I want to write this book, but I don't really want to relive the things that I have gone through. I don't want to relive the things that I used to do. Or for those of you that, want to be speakers, I want to be able to share my story without crying and really owning it without being defeated. But here's the thing. What's really going on inside of you is you're just not believing in the gospel the way you should believe. You are allowing the things in your head, the things that you've gone through, the things that you have dealt with to keep you bound. And that's not of God. He's not calling anything that you've been through to keep you bound. He's saying, I want you to share the story, but here you are still looping the story in a negative way towards yourself. And the lingering effects of what you've done in your past is what's keeping you not doing what God is calling you to do and delaying your online ministry. But you're not using the resources that God has given you. You're not using the Bible and reading the Bible like you should. You're not believing in the gospel as you should. And here you are looping the self-condemnation. And now when God calls you to speak, now when God calls you to write, it's opening up the floodgates of hell, not heaven. But if you just connect yourself to God in the way that he wants you to connect with him, then those things start to fall off you. That self-condemnation falls off you. You can tell your story. You can do it without crying. You can write your book without trying to relive it. You're just reflecting, and then you can move forward. All this is tied to online ministry, because if God is calling you to be a speaker, if he's calling you to be an author, if he's calling you to podcast, most of the time when people get to know you, it's literally based off of your story. But if you still sound defeated, they're not going to listen to you. If you still sound like the things you've gone through happened yesterday, they're not going to listen to you. And how is God going to get his glory when that happens? How is somebody going to be able to obey the gospel when that happens? So it's tied to the ministry because it is the basis of where you're going. Your story is literally the basis, a lot of times, of the ministry work that we even do. It is your story. It is your gifts. It is all these things working together. But if you are still condemning yourself, how do you have a story for the people? It makes me think about Peter, because he denied Christ 3 times, right? And I'm pretty sure he sobbed like you ain't never heard before. Seeing Jesus as the rooster crowed for the 3rd time, and him looking at him and him realizing the very thing that I said I wasn't going to do, I actually did. But here's the thing. Peter didn't loop that story in his head. He already knew as a disciple he had a call. He didn't know what it was going to fully look like, but we sure know that, less than 2 months later, on the day of Pentecost, he was preaching that what we like to call the first sermon, speaking in tongues, glorifying God in different tongues. He didn't allow what he did over here to dictate what God was doing with him over here. He didn't allow what was going on over here to dictate, hey, he was gathering his brothers and saying, God told us, Jesus on earth told us these things were going to happen. He rallied them right back up. He did not waste himself in his sin. But he continued to be a mighty person in God. And then was right there on Pentecost preaching to the lost souls, trying to understand, what is this? I am hearing them declare the wonders of God in my own language. And he steps right on in and shares with them exactly what's happening. Now imagine today if you lived free of the sins of your past. What would that look like for yourself internally? And what would that look like for the ministry God has called you to? I want you to put that in the chat. Type that in the chat, what it would look like. What kind of person would you be if you let your past sins go? Let me know in the comment section as to what that will look like. And I'm just going to be ecstatic to read those comments. And then I'm going to push you forward to actually live out that and to lay down the things that are delaying you from online ministry, because we want you to actually do the ministry that God has called you to do. So your sins are delaying them. But I believe in this season that you're going to lay your sins down and do what God has called you to today, because tomorrow is too late to be great.